Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to mismapasion. And before we get into the video, I would like to start off by apologizing for my absence over the last week. Life has/had become really hectic for so many reasons, so I had absolutely no strength or desire to do much, let alone watch any football. But I'm back now and in better spirits, and I hope that you are too. And if not, then just remember that you are not alone, and that the world is always a better place with you in it. Never be afraid to seek help or offer an ear to listen to someone. And with all that being said, let us get right into recapping match week number 4 of the Barclays WSL. Kicking things off in North London, and Arsenal are honestly testing the patience of their fan base, me included, as the Gunners put in the final miserable performance of what has honestly been a torrid week for them. From failing to do anything worthwhile against Everton and getting a draw out of that match, to forgetting how to defend as they got rolled over 5-2 by Bayern Munich like it was the latter years of the Wenger era, to their game on Saturday against champions Chelsea, where they honestly should never have even bothered to show up, in all honesty, because it was that bad. All it took was the first 16 minutes of the game for Chelsea to take home the 3 points, with goals coming from Ramirez and Baltimore, with the former Selly being begrudgingly baller, I must admit. The hosts Arsenal did pull one back thanks to Caitlin Ford in the remaining minutes of the first half, but this was a write-off of a game, as Chelsea were honestly on a training session, all things considered, and Arsenal never really looked like they were eager to step things up, even in the second half, to try and at least salvage a draw. Yet to win a game at home so far in the WSL and beginning to drift away from the title/European contenders, this game was surely the death knell for Jonas Edeval, who, after 3 years at the helm, still looks like he can't stick to a particular philosophy, and his seeming reliance on individual player brilliance seems to be wearing thin, as his wards on the pitch looked anything but happy to be playing for him. So change is needed for Arsenal, provided that they still harbor the ambition to reassert their dominance in England in the wake of the recent and impressive dominance of Chelsea and, to a lesser extent, Man City. Staying with the theme of North London teams, Arsenal's neighbours Spurs made the trip to Manchester to pay a visit to high-flying United in an encounter that promised something good, considering the recent performances of both sides, particularly the hosts. The match did not have much to write home about for the majority of its proceedings in the first half, but the hosts were definitely the dominant side, and said dominance would soon pay off in the form of 2 quick goals from Turland, who was on the receiving end of some great attacking play from the Red Devils that she was all too happy to put away to give her team the 2-0 lead going into the second half. United completed their show of style with the third and final goal from a penalty that was dispatched by Letitia after a handball by Neville, whose disappointment at the concession of the penalty pretty much epitomized the lackluster performance of the visitors, which will surely have helped to cheer up Gunners fans everywhere, even just a little bit, against the sparkling Mancunian side, who have honestly been an absolute pleasure and delight to watch so far in the league, as their quality of football is really up there, and if they manage to stay consistent, then who could honestly stop them from achieving their continental aspirations this season? In the first of a double-header encounter, we had Crystal Palace at home taking on Brighton and Hove Albion, which, in all honesty, was a plodding affair of a match. There really was not much to capture the imagination, let alone one's attention, because I personally struggled to stay focused on this game, with the only respite coming from the controversial goal that Paris scored for Brighton, which Crystal Palace unsuccessfully appealed to them, claiming that their goalie Yanis had been fouled in the build-up to the goal after she had collided mid-air with the Brighton player whilst contesting for said ball, which honestly, you can understand the complaints, but really, the keeper can't be defended in such a situation, and I hope you manage to stay on track with the explanation that I've just given. If not, you can just watch the highlights that led up to the goal on the WSL YouTube channel. No, this is not a plug, and you'll see what I was saying. The second of the double headers saw Everton take on West Ham in Merseyside in what was thankfully a bit more of an energized encounter between these two sides. Both sides were arguably still finding their footing in the league so far, and this game was a good opportunity to help stabilize themselves to some extent, and did they really try to do exactly that? It would be West Ham who drew first blood courtesy of Denton, whose attempt was served on a silver platter by Asayim against the run of play to give the visitors the early lead. And as if it was hard enough for the Hammers to get their lead, then it was definitely harder for them to maintain it, as the Toffees came back swinging up front whilst not giving much leeway behind, as they sought to break down the opposition and get themselves back level on the score sheet. Eventually, The home team's efforts would finally pay dividends thanks to West Ham Saez, whose attempt to block a shot caused the ball to deflect into the back of the net and ultimately snatch a point for Everton, who in my opinion were unfortunate to not gain all 3 points because they looked the better of the two sides and definitely should have got more of the game, but unfortunately their finishing was in need of a lot more refinement, and nevertheless it was a well-earned point for them. Our penultimate match of the game week takes us to Birmingham, where the resident Lions took on the Foxes from Leicester, and these two good, if not solid teams really put on an impressive clinic in the hopes to gain all 3 points. I'm genuinely torn at whether giving this match or the next one that we'll cover the seal of match of the week, because honestly, it was really that great, at least from my perspective. Aston Villa continued to show glimpses of their exciting promise that has really been evident thus far in the WSL campaign, whilst Leicester were still in search of a defining performance to make up for their good showing so far in the league, which somewhat unfortunately did not yield anything substantial to this point. All things considered, it was a decently entertaining draw, which both teams will definitely be frustrated with, particularly Aston Villa, who are still in the gelling process it seems, because they really dominated well in this match and should have come away victorious, but luck was not on their side, as in spite of some really good, sometimes point-blank opportunities, Leicester stood firm defensively to leave the villains brewing their missed chances, and I think it's about to be kitchen sink time for the villains to really get going with their season, otherwise it's going to be another write-off just like last season. Finally, we have our other contender for match of the week, with Liverpool taking to Anfield to face off against the rampant Manchester City, who are coming off a significant victory in the Champions League against Barcelona. The early goings of this match were a feeling out process because obviously City's dominance was undeniable, so the Reds were testing the waters to see how they could navigate the seemingly insurmountable odds in this David and Goliath epic. As one would expect, like I've said in previous videos as well, City's quality was there for all to see, with them dominating possession and time and again testing Liverpool's resolve at the back, whilst up front, the hosts were struggling on so many occasions to get themselves even into the final third of the opposing half. Such was City's well-roundedness. Things would take a turn towards halftime when a loose ball was picked up by Sophia Smith, who struck one from quite the distance actually, to give the underdogs the lead going into the second half, where things really turned up a notch. Trailing, but still raring to go, City would eventually find their leveler from goal machine Shaw not too long in the second half, but the former champions continued to grind away against an increasingly overwhelmed and beleaguered Liverpool, who are now just fighting to gain just a point out of this match. Unfortunately, it would not be meant to be for the Merseyside Reds, as Shaw would come back again in extra time of the second half to put the game to bed and seal all 3 points, as she and her team continued their chase after both Chelsea and Manchester United. And speaking of those two teams, the updated table sees them both maintain their perfect starts to the campaign, with Chelsea ahead on goal difference, whilst Man City retained their position at the top, albeit because of the postponed game between Chelsea and Manchester United due to the conflict in scheduling thanks to the Champions League. Arsenal, on the other hand, are locked out of heaven at the moment and currently find themselves in mid-table mediocrity with the likes of Tottenham Hotspur, and Villa, Leicester, West Ham and Everton are now the only teams left in the WSL who are yet to register a win in this season as they contest with each other to get out of the basement. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this week's game, and if you think, like me, that time is up for Jonas Edeval, and anything else you may have regarding this match week. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.